Welcome back, guys. This is my second video. And as you can see, I've upgraded my background a little bit. So I'm trying to get used to this YouTube stuff, but it's still really, really awkward. I guess I'll just go ahead and jump right in to where we left off. The last time I was on camera, I pretty much just gave a rundown of my 10-year mystery health journey, and some of the issues I was dealing with on it. We didn't really get into the details, so I kind of wanted to get into some of the details now to paint a better picture of what was, going on and what led to it and all of that good stuff. And I believe I referred to the last video as the setup. So we're going to get into some of the weeds now. So the last time I recorded, I pretty much mentioned that I had to take 3 rounds of an extremely strong antibiotic by the name of Cipro or ciprofloxacin. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And what that ended up doing was it ended up wiping out all of my good bacteria in my stomach. Now, when that happens, you actually end up pretty much destroying your immune system, because if you're not aware, your immune system is largely in your gut or stomach, rather. So that good bacteria is typically passed down to you when you breastfeed from your mom. Your immune system is typically passed down to you through breast milk. So once you start taking antibiotic, it compromises your gut stability, which pretty much leaves you immunocompromised. I know that's a word that we're hearing a lot. And immunocompromised people can range the gamut. Like, you can be slightly immunocompromised or have immune issues like lupus or, things like that, fibromyalgia, all of that stuff. But typically, if you take too much antibiotic, it completely cleans you out and you're pretty much susceptible to a lot of things. And that's not something that you want to, that's not a position that you want to be in, to be honest. So for me, I took this 3 rounds of antibiotic and my immune system went haywire. Hence, that's why I literally started getting skin rashes all over the place, like extreme skin rashes. I was having ridiculous body aches, and I mean terrible body aches. My back would hurt, my joints would hurt, my muscles would hurt, everything would hurt constantly. It was chronic. And I still deal with some pain now. It's not as bad as it was in the first couple of years when I was trying to figure things out, but it's basically an inflammation response. And if you know anything about inflammation is something you want to avoid. It causes disease, it causes discomfort, it causes all types of things. So along with the inflammation that I was experiencing, which was causing a lot of the body aches, I started to have really bad brain fog. I couldn't concentrate, I couldn't think straight. I was not sleeping still. I still have sleeping issues now that I'm trying to resolve. But in the beginning, it was just horrible. I was not sleeping at all. So when you don't sleep, your body doesn't go into repair. So sleep is very, 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 very important. So all of this stuff is happening. I'm completely thrown off. I'm just like, what is happening? What's going on? And I'm trying to figure it out. Now, I do want to rewind a little bit, because in the last video, I think I mentioned that I wanted everyone to remember the mold situation. So what I'm going to explain to you will probably come off, or what I like to call it is a series of unfortunate events. I can laugh about it now, but that's the best way I can describe it. It was like a perfect storm was brewing, right? So remember, I had to take the antibiotic because I had a sinus infection. And I've never had a sinus infection before. And it was completely lost on me how to deal with it. So I took the antibiotic. But the reason why I had to take the antibiotic for a sinus infection was because we discovered that we had mold in our house. So I'll explain something about the house that myself and my family used to live in. It was a small townhome. It had the basement that went underground. it flooded all the time. This basement flooded. And the best thing that we knew how to do was clean the water up and let it dry out as best as as best as it could. But what typically happens with moisture, constant moisture, and then you have seasonal variables like the heat and the moisture, it's not a good mix. And it basically created mold in the basement. So the basement was the main source of the mold. Now, the reason why we started to even look into what was happening in the house was because my second oldest sister, she started to exhibit certain symptoms. And this is even before I got really, really sick. She started to exhibit certain symptoms. She had just moved out of the house, and it seemed as if when she moved out of the house, her symptoms got worse. And me and her, we talk about this a lot, and we have this idea that sometimes when you are in the presence of a particular, I don't want to say substance, but I'm just going to say substance because I'm trying to explain this the best way I know how. Sometimes when you are in the presence of a particular substance and your body has already been taken over by certain bacteria or funguses. So for instance, not even for instance, but when you talk about mold, you're talking about fungus. When you inhale or ingest mold spores, it grows in your body. And that's not something that you want. It grows in your body, and these organisms have excretory systems. So essentially they're using the bathroom inside of you, and that's not a good thing. You are basically getting all types of toxins and all types of stuff that makes you sick. So there is such a thing as mold toxicity. So my sister, she moved out. Again, we have this idea that when you are away from this, when you are in the source of something and it's feeding the organisms in your body, yes, you're going to feel sick, but because it's getting its food from a direct source, the symptoms are not going to be exasperated. Mind you, this is all purely conjecture. This is completely us brainstorming, trying to figure out why it happened like this with her. So we figured that she left the house. The mold in her body no longer had the food, so to speak, from the mold source in the basement. So it kind of just went haywire in her as soon as she moved out. So my sister's situation was really bad. She could not digest very well. She was not sleeping. She had a lot of the symptoms that I later on started to feel before me. And I think it's probably because our biology is a little different. Me and my sisters were all quite petite, but out of myself and her, I'm more of the bigger one. And a sidebar, I know I look very small now, but this is the result of 10 years of sickness. I was much thicker before, and I'm trying to get back there. God willing, I'll get back there eventually. But this petite person you're seeing right now is a result of 10 years of sickness. I lost a total of 30 pounds, right? So back to my sister. My sister is much more petite than I was at the time. So I think that her system just couldn't deal with it as much as I could at the time. So my sister deteriorated very quickly. She probably got down to maybe 90 pounds, if not less than that. And we were really scared that we were going to lose her because she was not in any type of condition that you want to see your family member in. And the same thing happened with her. Doctors told her that she was crazy. They wanted to put her on all types of antidepressants. They didn't believe her. They did all type of diagnostic testing. Nothing. They didn't see anything. They just pretty much said that she was crazy. So now my sister is not feeling well, and we eventually, and I don't remember the specifics of how we decided to get our house checked for mold, but we ended up getting a check for mold, and the mold count in the house was ridiculously high, right? So now I'm going to paint a picture for you. So I got a sinus infection, went to the doctor, took antibiotics, right? 3 rounds of extremely strong antibiotic, and it completely wiped out my immune system. So naturally, I would start to now feel more effects of the mold in the house than I did before, because now my immune system is no longer fighting for me anymore, right? It's taken a hit. Now I'm sick. So my sister is going through it. I'm starting to see symptoms creep up on me at a much slower rate than her, but it's getting progressively worse. It's getting progressively worse. My body is hurting. I'm not digesting food very well. And if you're not able to digest food, you are not able to get nutrients. So essentially, I started to become malnourished, and not because I wasn't eating, but because my body was unable to digest a lot of things. So the first doctor that I went to try and figure out what was going on was it my first or my second? It was either the first or the second doctor. But I went to a gastroenterologist. So I go to this gastroenterologist. I'm describing my symptoms to him. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I think, maybe I found out I had mold in my house. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And the doctor's just looking at me like, okay, all right. And mind you, at the time, I'm super curvy, much younger than I am now. So he's looking at me and I look healthy to him. And it was very obvious that he didn't particularly believe me. But I think I was so desperate and I was asking so many questions that he just decided to run some tests anyway. So at the time, I wasn't really sure what I should be asking for. So they did a stool test, and I don't think they did a breath test. I think it was just a stool test. So I did a stool test. Everything comes back normal. He tells me to go on is it a food map diet? Basically, maybe I have some food intolerances. Maybe I'm gluten intolerant. Mind you, I don't have allergies. I'm not allergic to food. I don't have any food intolerances. I'm not even lactose intolerant, right? So again, my whole life pretty uneventful, pretty healthy, normal young woman, right? And so I'm just like, okay, fine. So that would start the beginning of a lot of different cleanses and diets and all types of stuff. And as we start to get like more into detail about what I did to mitigate some of my symptoms, I'll start to explain to you certain diets that worked for me, diets that did not work for me, and certain supplements that helped me the most. I'll start to get into that. But for now, I just kind of wanted to lay out the story. So I guess this portion of the story will be called a series of unfortunate events. Unfortunate, but fortunate, because if I didn't go through it, I wouldn't be able to share a lot of preventative measures with you guys, so you don't have to go through what I went through. Also, my mom ended up getting sick, not as sick as the rest of us, because her room was all the way upstairs, so she wasn't directly in the line of contact with the mold that was in the basement. But she also, my mom is older, so she also started to feel a lot of the symptoms. And one of those being, my mom experienced a lot of body aches. It was just a very confusing time to be dealing with health issues that we had no idea even like existed, right? We thought for the most part we had lived a very uneventful, as far as like health issues are concerned, life. All of us were pretty healthy. My family is pretty healthy. So it just came as a shock to us. But I say all that to say that if there's one thing that I can, or one piece of advice that I can give you guys as far as mold, if you move into a new house, if you're in a current house, an apartment, anywhere that you live, make sure that you are testing for mold. I know that when I decided to get my condo, the first thing my sister told me was get mold testing. It's expensive, don't get me wrong. I think it cost me like $500. But considering everything that we had been going through because of the mold, it was worth the expense. So I would recommend that anybody that plans on moving into a new home, that's not a new construction, to please do mold testing so you know what you're getting yourself into. Also, if you ever have basement flooding or moisture in your house, make sure that you get it checked out by a professional so you're not unknowingly living with potentially toxic mold that can ruin your health. In my case, it was a perfect storm, but the antibiotic did help reveal that there was something else going on in the house. So at this point, now I'm dealing with overprescription of antibiotic and mold toxicity. And my issues did not end there. They did not end there, but that's all I'm going to talk to you guys about in this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. And I can't wait to talk to you guys the next time. Bye.